The colour blue did not exist until quite late in human history. But the sky is blue, I hear you cry. Not today, because it's raining. Well, although our ancestors saw the sky, there was no word at all to represent blue in any language on earth until the Egyptians invented a dye which was blue in colour. Blue is very rare in other areas of nature too. There are no blue animals, really. Most blue flowers are man-made. Even bluebells are purple and not blue. Blue eyes are rare, and even the sky, like today, isn't always blue. The few items that we perceive as blue would have been grouped with other shades of colours such as greens or purples, depending on the vocabulary of a group of people. In the Odyssey, Homer famously describes the sea as wine dark. Why wine dark and not blue, turquoise or green? In 1858, William Gladstone, before he became the Prime Minister, noticed that this wasn't the only strange colour description in the Odyssey. Though Homer spends time describing at length the intricate details of clothing, armour, weaponry, facial features and animals, his references to colour are strange. Iron and sheep are violet, honey is green. Gladstone then decided to count all of the colour references in the book. Here were his findings. Black is mentioned almost 200 times, white about 100, other colours are mentioned much less. Red is mentioned fewer than 15 times, and yellow and green fewer than 10. He then started looking at other ancient texts and noticing the same thing. The word blue didn't even exist. Gladstone thought this was perhaps something unique to the Greeks, but Lazarus Geiger also followed up on this work and noticed this was true in all cultures. Geiger studied the Quran, an ancient Hebrew version of the Bible, Icelandic sagas, ancient Chinese stories, and he wrote, "These hymns of more than 10,000 lines are brimming with descriptions of the heavens. Scarcely any subject is evoked more frequently. The sun and reddening dawn's play of colour, day and night, cloud and lightning, the air and ether, all these are unfolded before us again and again. But there is one thing no one would ever learn from these ancient songs, and that is that the sky is blue." Blue as a word or specific colour did not exist. It was indistinguishable between shades of green and other colours, such as purples. So Geiger looked to see when blue started appearing in languages and found an odd pattern. In every language, the colour black is the first name, and also white, dark and light, yeah? The next word for colour to come into existence in every language studied around the world was red, the colour of blood and wine. Historically, after that, words appears, yellow follows, and later green. The last of these colours to appear in every language is blue. The only ancient culture to develop a word for blue was the Egyptians. And as it happens, they were also the only culture that had a way to produce a blue dye. Once the dye was made, a name for that colour had to be given. Before we had a word for blue, people didn't see it as a different colour to other things. Do we really see something then if we don't have a word for it? Researcher Jules Davidoff travelled to Namibia to investigate this and conducted an experiment with the Himba tribe. This tribe speaks a language that has no word for blue and has no distinction between blue and green. When tribal members were shown a circle with 11 green squares and 1 blue, the vast majority could not pick out which one was different from the rest. Those who could see a difference took much longer and made more mistakes than would make sense to us, who can clearly spot the blue square. They were then shown the same circle of green squares, but instead of an odd blue square, it was replaced with a square which was a different shade of green. This time, every member of the tribe was able to pick out the odd square out. Interestingly, the Himba have more words for types of green than we do in English. Davidoff says that without a word for a colour, even though our eyes are physically seeing it, it is somehow blocked. Without a way of identifying a colour as different, it is much harder for us to notice what is unique about it. The name of the colour is a way of identifying it as a different or separate shade. Before blue became a common concept, maybe humans saw it, but it seems that they didn't know that they were seeing it. There are two ways I can try to explain this. Firstly, scientist and author of Through the Language Glass, Why the World Looks Different in Other Languages, Guy Dutcher, tried a casual experiment. In theory, one of a child's first question is, why is the sky blue? So, with his wife's permission, he raised his daughter to never describe the colour of the sky to her. He taught her the colours of objects, as all parents do, but always omitted telling her the colour of the sky. One day, they were taking a walk outside, and he was practising asking her to name the colour of objects. What colours are flowers? What colours are grass? He then asked her, what colour is the sky? His daughter looked up and couldn't answer. Deutscher's daughter had no idea. To her, the sky was colourless. After much hesitation, she decided it was white, and later on, eventually blue. So blue was not the first thing she saw or thought of, though it is where she settled on in the end. A second way is this. When teaching children colours from a young age, we teach them the rainbow song. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple and pink, and also black and white and brown. We also name those colours. Their language and perception of colour is based purely on those colours taught. So when shown anything that is a shade of green, they call it simply green. They know that they're not all the same shade of green, but they lack the language to express it, and so therefore they lump them all together. It's only when their language develops as they get older and they learn shades and tones that they're able to identify it. As such, we can look at a shade of green and say it's sage or mint or emerald, turquoise, so on. But unless we have a word for it, we can just say it's green, or at best a light green or a dark green. Language and colour go hand in hand. For a colour to exist, it needs a name. Once it has a name, it can be described and then picked out amongst all the other tones of the same shade. You only need to look at all of the tubes of paint on the shelves here to see the wide variety of names of colour for hues of different tones, like vermilion, scarlet, carmine, rose doré, rose madder, magenta, alizarin crimson, quinacridone red and opera rose, all describe various shades of red. So, does a colour exist if it doesn't have a name? No, not really, as we've seen here and through our own experience of growing up. I hope you found that interesting.